Hello all and welcome to the GMAT Advanced Target 700 program by Career Karta. Today we are going to see the 14th installment of the verbal series of the whole program. Today we are going to discuss a passage which contains three different elements. One is that it's a political history passage which is often a source of a lot of passages on the GMAT. You know, the political history, especially of the American continent, is a topic that is often discussed. It is also a passage that will discuss about women issues. So that also is a topic which is a high focus topic. And thirdly, we will be seeing a lot of viewpoints, as well as the author will have interpretation of those viewpoints. Another crucial element that you will see in a lot of GMAT passages that have a lot of opinions by different people, and then author himself also has an opinion, or sometimes we'll just conclude by bringing all the opinion pieces on the same plane, right? So let's jump right in. Now this passage says that the new school of political history that emerged in the 1960s and 1970s sought to go beyond the traditional focus of political historians on leaders and government institutions by examining directly the political practices of ordinary citizens. Okay, which means that this is a new school. It has emerged in 60s and 70s, and it has gone beyond the traditional focus of political historians, which means the traditional historians, the ones before 1960 and 70, focused on leaders and government institutions, whereas these new guys are focusing on the political practices of ordinary citizens. Okay, even in the beginning, we have the old historians. The old historians focused on leaders and governments. The new historians, they are focusing on ordinary citizens. Okay. Like the old approach, however, this new approach excluded women. Okay, so we can see that both of them excluded women. The very techniques these historians use to uncover mass political behavior in the 19th century United States, quantitative analysis of election returns, for example, were useless in analyzing the political activities of women who were denied the vote until 1920. Okay, so most of these researches are based on political behavior in the 19th century, which is 1801 to 1899. Women were denied the vote in till 1920, which means they couldn't, even if they wanted to, cover the political actions of women. By redefining political activity, historian Paula Baker has developed a political history that includes women. Okay, so we had the old guys, number one, we had the new historians, and now you have a third player, which is Paula Baker. What she has done, she has included women. Okay, the first one was old approach. It focused on leaders, excluded women. The second one was new approach, focused on ordinary citizens, still excluded women. Paula Baker, on the other hand, have included women. She concludes that among ordinary citizens, political activism by women in the 19th century prefigured trends in 20th century politics. Prefigured trends means had an impact. Okay. By defining politics as any action taken to affect the course of behavior of government or of the community, Baker concludes that while voting and holding office were restricted to men, women in the 19th century organized themselves into societies committed to social issues such as temperance and poverty. Okay. In other words, Baker contends women activists were early practitioners of non-partisan issue-oriented politics and thus were more interested in enlisting lawmakers, regardless of their party affiliation, on behalf of certain issues than in ensuring one party or another won in an election. Okay, they are saying that women organize themselves in societies, and they were looking at particular issues. Okay, so it did not really matter if they belong to one party or another party, as long as they were working on those issues and that were aligned to what women were trying to work on by forming societies. That was enough. Okay, and what were the kind of issues? Okay, this is poverty. What does temperance mean? Okay, so temperance basically means kind of like abstinence. Okay, so essentially people who do not drink or who do not indulge in vices. Okay, so women did not want people, the men to drink, or they wanted the politicians to focus on poverty. Okay, women activists were early practitioners of non-partisan. What does non-partisan means? But non-partisan means that something that is equally applicable to everybody, which is not favoring a particular sect, right? And issue-oriented politics. In the 20th century, more men drew closer to women ideas about politics and took up modes of issue-oriented politics that Baker says women have having pioneered. Okay, so what does Paula Baker say? Paula Baker says that in the 19th century, women did not actively participate, but women focused on issue-based politics, something that prefigured a trend that continued. Okay, that continued in the 20th century, where men drew closer to women's ideas about politics. Right? Let's look at the questions. Now, the first question is the very traditional primary purpose of the passage question. Let's look at the options. Enumerate reasons why both traditional scholarly methods and newer scholarly methods have limitations. Okay, so definitely, what is the limitation that they are talking about in the beginning? That the limitation being that they did not cover women. Very simple, right? They were only focusing on one segment of the society. So this is definitely there in the passage, but is that the primary passage, is the primary purpose of the passage? No. This is there in one part, okay? As I have been telling you all along, this covers the message that has been given in a paragraph or probably in 2 paragraphs, but this certainly is not the primary purpose of the passage. Identify a shortcoming in a scholarly approach and describe an alternative approach. Now this fits very well, because what is the shortcoming in a scholarly approach? That women were not covered. What were these approaches? The old and new approaches. What is the alternative approach? Paula Baker is the alternative approach. Right? So this becomes a very good choice. Let's look at the other options. Provide empirical data to support a long-held scholarly assumption. Now, is there any empirical data that is being provided? What does empirical data mean? Empirical data means thoughtful. Empirical means that something that has been crystallized, facts, figures, things like that. There's no data that is being given. Okay. Compare 2 scholarly publications on the basis of their authors' backgrounds. Is that the case? We have one author, which is Paula Baker. But do we have her background? The answer is no. And what is the second author's background? None. We only talk about political history. We do not talk about any particular author. We do not talk about their names only. Forget about their background. Okay. And when we talk about Baker, we do not talk about Baker's background as well. Okay. We mention who she was and what she did, but there's no discussion around the background, right? So this also goes, attempt to provide a partial answer to a long-standing scholarly dilemma. Now, this is an option that has been given to confuse you. There is no dilemma, first of all. Okay, nobody is saying that we cannot understand why women were excluded. Everybody is acknowledging that women were excluded and it was possibly a failure or it was a limitation on the work of both old and new historians. Okay, but there is no attempt to provide a partial answer to the dilemma, because there is no dilemma in the first place. So what are you providing the partial answer to? Okay, so this also goes out. Option B becomes our answer. Right, let's look at the next question. The passage suggests which of the following concerning the techniques used by the new political historians described in the first paragraph of the passage. Let's come to the first paragraph. Okay, so this essentially is the first paragraph. There is a kind of like just a space, but the technique that historians used to uncover mass political behavior was quantitative analysis of election returns. This is this technique, right? Let's come back. They involved extensive use of the biographies of political party leaders and political theoreticians. Is this something that the new guys were doing? No. This is who was doing this? This was being done by the old historians, not the new ones. Right? We have seen old historians, what they did do? They focused on leaders and government. What did the new guys do? They looked at ordinary citizens. What else? They looked at the quantitative analysis of election results. Right? This is a very, very easy option to knock off. You shouldn't even be surprised by this answer. Let's look at the next one. They were conceived by political historians who were reacting against the political climates of the 1960s and 70s. So there's no information. Okay, so this is kind of like a something on which you can very easily say there's no information about this. Were they reacting to the political climate of the 1960s and 70s? We don't know. They were of more use in analyzing the positions of the United States political parties in the 19th century than in analyzing the positions of those in the 20th century. Again, we do not have enough information to say that, they were more useful for the 19th century than in analyzing the positions of those in the 20th century. All we know is that 19th century things prefigured 20th century stuff. Okay, but we do not know that they were used in analyzing the 19th century more than 20th century. They were of more use in analyzing the political behavior of 19th century voters than in analyzing the political activities of those who could not vote during that period. Now, this is perfect. Why? Because what are they doing? They are quantitatively analyzing election returns. Okay. What does election returns mean? It means the rolls that come after the election has been done, which means they can only analyze people who voted, right? They are looking at what? They are looking at election returns. If you could not vote during this period, you will never come in election returns. Only people who were being voted were being counted. So you could analyze the behavior of people who were voting, who were basically men, but not of women who were not voting and hence were not a part of election returns. Okay. So you can see if we lay out the passage well, if we lay out the philosophies really well, it then becomes a lot easier to answer such types of passages. Okay. Let's look at option E before we finalize D. They were devised as a means of tracing the influence of 19th century political trends on 20th century political trends. No. See, if the 19th century behavior ended up having an impact on 20th century, it's a separate issue. You cannot say that the techniques used by new political historians were devised as a means of tracing the influence of this. Okay, these were just the 19th century having an impact on 20th century, something that happened. You cannot suggest that these new techniques were done to calculate what kind of impact is going to happen. This also goes out and option D becomes our answer. Let's look at the next one. It says it can be inferred that the author of the passage quotes Baker directly in the second paragraph, primarily in order to. Okay, let's look at where Baker has been quoted. Here, right? Here. By redefining political activity, historian Paula Baker has developed a political history that includes women, right? Let's look at the options. Clarify a position before providing an alternative to that position. Now, is it clarifying a position? Redefining political activity. They are not taking any particular position. Position will be taken with respect to political activity. Political activity in itself is not a position. Hence, this goes out. Differentiate between a novel definition and a traditional definition. Now, as soon as you hear this, here is the word redefining. If I am redefining political activity, what exactly am I doing? I am differentiating between a novel definition. When do you say you are redefining something? When you're saying that, boss, I'm going to change the way this whole thing is calculated, right? So redefining is exactly what she's doing here, right? Provide an example of a point agreed on by different generations of scholars. No, political history as being redefined, but it does not go on to show that it is a point on which different generations of scholars agree. In fact, we do not have enough information on this. The earlier guys we know did not include women. The guys after that did not include women. It's something that we know, but we do not know whether all of them were agreeing on the point of political history as interpreted by Paula Baker. Provide an example of the prose style of an important historian. This is not prose, okay? Political history is kind of like a concept. It's a definition, and option B is very clearly identifying that definition. Amplify a definition given in the first paragraph. Okay, so it's not amplifying in a particular way. See, first of all, there is no clear definition of political history in the first paragraph, right? There are techniques. Redefining of political activity only occurs in the second paragraph. That is first. Now, second thing is that it is in no way amplifying. Even if we were to say that, we are getting a hint of political history from here, political activity is in no way amplifying political history. They are two separate concepts, right? And any which way, I think option B answers the question very directly, where it says redefining political activity is differentiating between a novel definition and a traditional definition. In the next installment of this series, we are going to look at some additional questions from this particular passage. People who have had trouble understanding any of the aspects, I would suggest you go through the video at your own pace. You can go through it multiple times. Try to understand the passage from your point of view, because trust me, this is a topic you will definitely encounter because it is one of the most common topics that is there in the GMAT, right? So I'll see you in the next session. Till then, don't forget to subscribe so that you get all the videos of the series, and don't forget to like so that we are motivated to bring you more and more content like this. All right, I'll see you in the next session. Till then, keep preparing.